And the main point for today is risk assessment. So it's the basic case of outlining in a hotel and in a hotel property what we need to do as a management team to prevent injury, to prevent theft, to prevent crime within our hotel. It's a responsibility of senior manager, the general manager, and all of anyone in operations to make sure that procedures and principles are put in place and all employees know what these procedures are to be responsible for their property. Okay, so we want to make sure our guests are safe from crimes that happen outside or inside the hotel, within a guest room, or any other venue that the property is responsible for. So the first thing is we take an assessment. This is what's called risk management. We're going to assess our property. So basically, many companies might hire companies outside of the hotel management team to do a risk assessment. You might hire a special security force, a security team, or if you have a security director that you choose to hire as part of the management team, you're going to ask them to hire an outside firm to do a risk assessment of the property. That's to make sure that it's safe, looking at security related items. If you have a pool meaning, are there signs posted? Is there slip things so people can't slip and fall? Are the stairs safe? Many years ago, all pools had a diving board. Well, you don't see those anymore. Too many hotel properties or resorts have been sued with people becoming paralyzed or getting injured, breaking their neck. So they did away with that, part of the risk assessment. So these are actions that are pre-taken to prevent threat, to prevent an injury, loss, theft, a crime happening. So basically, it's what we used to call total quality management. It's a review of seeing what can we take to prevent something bad happening to our guests. So it's a risk assessment of safety and security. Okay, so there's going to be costs. Costs could mean that you get a outside company that comes in and look at your property and say, you need better lighting, you need security cameras, you need a security system. So initial benefits or operational expenses have to be upgraded. They could say you need on-property security team. You need a director of security, so you have to budget for these monies for labor costs, okay? So risk assessment is basically making yourself aware of what needs to be done and corrected and implementing these strategies so that your operations teams, your managers, and it filters down to all of your employees. For example, let's say if someone's at a pool, they slip and they break their arm. These are real scenarios. When I was at Kaloa Landing in Hawaii, we had a large pool. It was voted the top pool of America. It was actually voted the top pool in Hawaii and the United States, including California, Florida. It was massive. And when someone would fall and break their arm, and it happened many times, we reacted right away. We knew what to do. We knew how to get an emergency team there, filled out the reports, took care of the guests. Everybody reacted. It wasn't us looking at each other, dumbfounded, and saying, you know, what has to happen? What do we need to do? So we want to make sure guests are safe. If we have, locker rooms or guest rooms in spas, locker rooms in golf outing events, locker room for outdoor gaming, and guests have to go in and change and shower, are they safe? Do we make it available for guests to lock things of value? When a guest is in a room, they have to be safe. When a guest signs out a room, it's just like signing out a rental property, all right? So all those procedures fall into place. So we want to reduce the number of problems. So another assessment is fire and safety. So a lot of places have fire inspections. They have to inspect the sprinklers, but they'll also go around by law and inspect the property and make an assessment. Okay. Today now, since COVID, we're all aware of all the safety securities that were implemented with COVID. All of you have taken sanitation or will be taking sanitation food service before you enter the labs, and you will learn that food poisoning is a responsibility. Implementing a HACCP plan, hazardous analysis critical control point plan, maintaining proper food through distribution, proper temperature and handling of food so our guests do not get sick. If you have guests that are at your hotel staying for a convention or a conference and they're dining in your special events conference center and they get sick, well, that whole event that's staying in your hotel could have a major issue if they get sick. About 5 years ago, there was major issue with bed bugs in New York City, throughout many properties in New York, and became a major issue. Hotels had to shut down, be fumigated, new beds had to be purchased. All of this creates expenses, okay, by not properly maintaining the property. So we want a risk assessment. The first process is to identify risk. Anything to protect the safety and security of a customer. You could be walking in a dark corridor and simply say on your report, needs better lighting. You could be walking outside on a cement sidewalk, needs railing. There was an incident in Hawaii when some teenagers were leaning against a rail at a well-known mall. It was an outdoor mall. All 4 of the teenagers fell. 2 of them were killed instantly and 2 were paralyzed. So if that property, the mall, shopping mall, did a risk assessment, they would have identified that these railings need to be repaired. So instead, there was negligence and there was liability, criminal liability applied to the people responsible. Criminal is different than capital, meaning that you're going to be charged and sued and have to pay money. Criminal means you're going to jail if you're found criminally negligent. Okay, and people were found criminal negligent, so people were going to jail. So what are your losses? Potential losses, meaning value. Do you have to shut down the pool for a certain period of time for repairs? Do you have to close this corridor to have the stairs and railings poured cement with more secure? All right, so loss means it could be time lost with sale. It could be time lost if the pool is closed and your whole property is about the pool and guests and customers go there because of it, well, you're losing revenue. So that's what is a loss? You have to assess that, okay? Implementing the risk management instruments. Who's gonna oversee? What's the plan? Who's gonna be the owner? Do you contract someone else to do the work? Is the work done by inside engineering or maintenance? What's the time frame, the schedule? Okay, these are all instruments that are required of management teams to put in place when an assessment is done and something is determined that it's a safety issue. Okay, finalizing and implementing the plan. Implementing means who's the owner, who's going to sign off, who's going to evaluate and follow up on this plan. It's not just going to be put out there and out in the middle of the cloud somewhere, and no one's actually following up on this plan. Okay, loss benefits, reduce of costs, risk, which means that you could be shut down, no revenue. Cost could mean that we didn't put it in a capital expense. Where are we going to find the money to pay for construction? Reduce of anxiety means that to fix it. You know your guests aren't going to walk out and lean on a railing and get hurt. You know a guest isn't going to go to a pool and something's going to happen to them. Okay, you know they're not going to go to a parking lot that's not well lit and something's going to happen to them. Okay, so making sure you look into all those external losses or revenue. Okay, long run, it's the survival of the business. All right, so if something seriously or tragic happens in your property, it'll go out into social media. It'll make the news. One of our case studies that we're going to research is a major incident that happened in Kansas City. It was a brand new Hyatt Regency hotel that opened up. They put in a brand new walkway. It went from the convention center to the hotel. Well, they had a big gala, a big event. It collapsed. It had so many people on it. People on the walkway when it collapsed were killed. People underneath the walkway when it collapsed, it was killed. So the case study is, could this been alleviated through a risk assessment? The case study also is, who's at fault? So again, the hotel closed down. They lost money. There was people that were found criminal liability. There was people that were found civil liability lawsuits. So not only did people potentially serve time in jail, but people also had to pay fines and fees. The hotel closed for a certain period of time and they lost revenue. Well, it wasn't just a local news story. It was a national news story, and it happened in Kansas City in the middle of America. Okay, so when that happens, it's gonna kill your revenue stream. So anything as far as growth, revenue, income, on your budget, continued growth, everything, it's going to close that. Any events on the books, it's going to cancel all of those events. Okay. Now, in some of our lectures, we're going to talk a little more detailed about the guest key and room keys. So we'll just get through this quickly. The parameters of, just know from this lecture that when a guest signs out a room, they pay for it a credit card and they receive a key. That room is just like renting an apartment, renting a house. They are the owner of that room during that certain period of time. That means you have to treat them as a rental guest. You can't budge in. You have to follow the rules and regulations of that state that tells you what it's to manage to a rental property. So locks, guest security. You can't barge in on a guest. You can't just go in and unlock a door because it's owned by the company. So there has to be rules and guidelines. But there's also emergency procedures if you need to get into the room when there is an emergency. So you have to follow the rules and regulations of that. How do we communicate the emergency procedures? Internally and externally. Internally is our fellow staff, our team members, our employees. When someone gets injured at the pool, right away, servers at the pool bar and the pool restaurant took control. They knew how to act because they were trained properly. They could have said, I'm just a server at the restaurant. I don't know anything about the pool. They didn't. They called 911. They got the emergency services there right away. They notified the manager on duty. The manager on duty notified the front desk manager. All the chain of command was followed, and the reports were filled out. The manager on duty stayed with the guests until the EMTs arrived. Then proper protocol was put in place. If these servers at the pool bar were not trained correctly, they could have simply said, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm just a pool server, or I'm a bartender. They didn't. They reacted immediately because they were trained correctly. The next thing is you document. That's security records. So you're going to have a record or report that you write, which most companies have a standard form. The EMTs are going to have a record, which you're going to get a copy of and attach it to that form. If you have a security manager or director of security, they're going to get a copy of the report. And then everyone that's a manager will see a copy of that, or it'll be filed in a Word cloud-based storage system, and it'll be available if there's a follow-up. If a guest comes in and tries to sue, or they follow up, or they say no one helped them or wasn't managed properly. Most hotels follow up. They just don't let it go and say, okay, we took care of the guest. They try to do everything they can to compliment the guests, to make them feel secure and safe. At this pool, when I was a manager, I had people where the chairs flipped up in windstorms and hit them. I had people that slipped and fell and broke their arms. We had a big, beautiful slide that went through lava rocks into the pool. So I had people get injured on that. So you name the scenario, it happened. So we followed up on the guests. Some guests did not complain. Some guests posted negative comments. Other guests posted positive comments. So every scenario is different. So you have to keep very good records. We're going to talk more about lodging and safety and security and locking rooms as we go through. Right now, I just want to do an overview of the risk assessment. Know that fires, so you have to have sprinkler systems in hotels. When I lived in Hawaii and Oahu, there was a fire that broke out. They were grandfathered in with fire sprinklers because it was an old hotel. Just to let you know how fast this fire grew, within a matter of hours, it went from 1 floor to 3 or 4 floors. And then many people were injured and people did get killed. It was a major story at the time, and I was living in Hawaii at that time. But way before that, hotels were not grandfathered in. New hotels and older hotels that could get security systems and fire systems had to have them. So you're going to have some case studies that you're going to look at. It's, here in Florida, we have hurricane building code, building procedure, state codes that you have to maintain. Certain parts of the country, even Hawaii, you have earthquake structure damage, so they have to maintain procedures. Hawaii, we had fire. With fire, while I was there in the Big Island, they had the volcano erupted. So there's actually resorts that went under lava on the Big Island. They're no longer in existence. They show the before and after pictures. What were the protocol? What are the procedures? You don't think these things happen today. Think of everything that's happening as far as fires, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquake, and even lava on the Big Island. All of these are resort areas, and we're in the hospitality industry. Flooding, okay, Gaylord's Opryland, Nashville, Tennessee, big major story many years ago. Okay, so those are all examples of risk assessment.